have breaking news this hour. Matt Gaetz is stepping down from his nomination to Attorney General of the United States. Many said this was the most contentious of the nominations made by former President Trump. And he has announced categorically that he will not be seeking confirmation to the post of Attorney General. Here are his words. I had excellent meeting with senators yesterday. I appreciate their thoughtful feedback and the incredible support of so many. While the momentum was strong, it is clear that my confirmation was unfairly becoming a distraction to the critical work of the Trump-Vance transition. There's no time to waste on a needlessly protracted Washington scuffle. Thus, I'll be withdrawing my name from consideration to serve as Attorney General. Trump's DOJ must be in place and ready on day one. I remain fully committed to seeing that Donald J. Trump is the most successful president in history.
Something's going on, gang. Something is going on. I think we're seeing the makings of a 4D chess champion, or better, two 4D chess champions. I'm going to lay out an argument for you here that this whole Matt Gaetz saga was all intentional. This was all, as it were, scripted. And I'm curious what you think. Let me know in the chat. First, greetings, everyone. Come on in, one and all. I'm your host, Dr. Steve, your patron professor, here to celebrate the rising of the golden age with you. So make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. Now, as you all know, Matt Gaetz has withdrawn his name from consideration for Attorney General. And I know that there's a lot of anger out there, precisely because of the enormous pushback the Gaetz nomination got from effing Republicans. Forget the Democrats. They're losers. They're in the minority all the way around. We could care less about the Democrats. Nope, it's the Republicans. The Republicans are the ones who have stood in the way of us being successful these last 4 decades. It's not Democrats. We don't need Democrats. We got rhinos. We got Karl Rove. We got Trey Gowdy. Mr. Beetlejuice head. His head shrunk even smaller as a result of all this. We got Susan Collins. We got Mitch McConnell. We got the utterly repulsive Lisa Murkowski. We don't need Democrats. It's Republicans that never fail to stand in the way of our success. Or did they? Did they? You see, there are several signs here that this was indeed all intended. Now, I'm not saying I know this. I'm going to tell you that up front. I know, right? Remember, we've talked about this in an earlier video today. You do not want to be lied to. I am not Joe Scarborough. I'm certainly not Mika. All right, I am not Rachel Maddow. I am not going to lie to you intentionally like they do, right? Or at least I should say they appear to do, right? I don't know this. What I'm saying is that there are several signs that show that we are witnessing some pretty impressive Game of Thrones 4D chess maneuvering from both Trump and Gaetz. Keep that in mind. From both Trump and Gaetz. Now, write that down or keep score of that as we go through this. Again, I am going to tell you up front, I don't have inside baseball info here. I'm not saying I know this, but there are some very clear signs that this is indeed 4D chess. And I'm going to lay it out for you, and you tell me what you think in the chat. So first and foremost, this was an obviously very abrupt withdrawal. It came out of left field, right field, I guess, for Gaetz. And it was one that clearly had Trump's green light behind it. As you know, Trump released a statement on Truth Social. I greatly appreciate the recent efforts of Matt Gaetz in seeking approval to be Attorney General. He was doing very well, but at the same time did not want to be a distraction for the administration, for which he has much respect. Matt has a wonderful future, and I look forward to watching all of the great things that he will do. So that's first. This was a sudden announcement, but you can be sure it didn't happen suddenly. Right? Get that? Make sure you got that. This was a sudden announcement, but there's no indication that it happened suddenly. This had Trump's approval behind it. So that's first. Secondly, we have to ask, why on earth did Trump nominate Gaetz in the first place? Yes, he's a firebrand. Yes, he's a Trump loyalist. We all knew that. We unwaveringly supported him. No question. But, and this is key to all of this, but Gaetz and Trump knew that, and all of Trump's people, inner circle, knew that Gaetz was not well liked on Capitol Hill. He has very, very few friends among both senators and his fellow congressmen. And the unwritten rule of Washington, D.C. politics is that you do not make enemies on Capitol Hill. Enemies on Capitol Hill are going to haunt you, guaranteed. And they knew this going into it. Both Gaetz and Trump knew this. Remember, Matt Gaetz is the one who spearheaded the rebellion against Kevin McCarthy, effectively removing a Speaker of the House from office. That is simply not done. And it ruined his congressional career. McCarthy announced his resignation from his seat shortly thereafter, shortly after being removed as Speaker at the behest of Gaetz. So there's a lot of bad blood on Capitol Hill over that move by Gaetz. And that's one of the reasons why so many were surprised that Trump nominated Gaetz. So one, you got the clear green lighting, not gaslighting, green lighting of Trump for Gaetz's withdrawal. He clearly approved it. And then two, you got the fact that Gaetz was public enemy number one among his fellow congressional ilk on Capitol Hill. But third, remember, Trump could have seated Gaetz as Attorney General if he wanted to. Trump could have seated Gaetz as Attorney General if he wanted to. Remember what he did, what he negotiated during the Senate Majority Leader battle. There was a leadership battle between John Cornyn of Texas and John Thune of South Dakota. By putting Rick Scott of Florida into the mix, Trump threatened to split the support between both Thune and Cornyn and draw that support into the support Scott already had and make Scott Senate Majority Leader. But then what Trump did is he used Scott's candidacy for the Senate Majority Leader as leverage to get Thune to agree to recess appointments if Trump agreed not to back Scott, which is precisely what played out. So we've seen Trump play this game before. We've seen the 4D chess in action. And the key here is that concession that Thune gave him to allow Trump recess appointments included the Attorney General. And it appears that concession was the leverage Trump used now with the Attorney General nomination. By threatening to seat Gaetz as Attorney General by means of the very recess appointments the Senate agreed to, that gave Trump the leverage for getting the real Attorney General that he wants, who will be every bit as vicious as Gaetz, who's waiting in the wings. We don't know who it is yet, but you could be assured it's not going to be a swamp creature. No way Trump's going to go through that again, not for being the victim of all of this lawfare for the last 8 years. So I don't know who it is yet. We'll find out. But what all of this suggests to me is that Trump worked out an agreement with Senate Republicans to confirm his new Attorney General, whoever it is, and used the power of the recess appointment of Gaetz as his leverage to get that concession. And now he gets the real Attorney General he always wanted. And we'll find out shortly who that is. Now, to close the loop here, the obvious question then is, why on earth would Gaetz agree to this? Why would Gaetz give up his Florida congressional seat only to agree to withdraw his name from consideration. You tell me, put it in the chat. Why would Gaetz agree to do this? Well, we're already getting the answer, aren't we? There's already a call to have Matt Gaetz replace who? Marco Rubio in the Senate. So a number of people are out there now. Interesting, isn't it? That didn't take too long. A number of people are out there now calling on Governor Ron DeSantis, who, of course, would be a part of this. If this is truly the 4D chess that it looks like, again, I'm just saying on the surface, this is what it looks like. But if that's the case, Ron DeSantis will be a part of it. And if we're analyzing this rightly, there are already calls out there to give the seat to Matt Gaetz and make him a 24/7 thorn in the side of both his Republican colleagues as well as Democrats. So bottom line, a recess appointment of Gaetz was used as leverage to get Republicans to agree to the attorney general candidate that Trump really wanted, all the while Gaetz gets a Florida Senate seat. If that's what they're doing, gang, I'm sorry. This was freaking absolutely awesome. We'll obviously have to see how it plays out, right? But if it plays out that way, you heard it here first. I want to touch on something else before we finish up the segment here. Something else happened today, something I think, frankly, disturbing, and that's the conviction of Justice Smollett. It was overturned by the Illinois Supreme Court. As you all know, Smollett was found guilty of staging a hate hoax, absolutely ridiculous, absurd hate hoax that only the most rabidly woke purveyors of hate could possibly believe in. His case was reviewed by the state high court, which just ruled that after he entered a non-prosecution agreement with the Cook County State Attorney's Office, that he should not have been charged in the first place. So it was overturned on a technicality. But I need not tell you, this overturning of a horrific hate hoax against the backdrop of the blatant lawfare that we've been seeing now for 2.5 years at least, not to mention the whole Russian collusion fiasco, it does foreground the concern that many of us have of an asymmetrical two-tier justice system that's throwing the book at Trump and the J6ers and Alex Jones, all the while the woke left-wing activists of our culture are acquitted or their sentences overturned, right? Or not even charged. And we need to look no further than all the stuff we've been seeing in the Washington, D.C. court system that is as corrupt as they possibly can get. How they've acquitted someone as admittedly guilty of lying to the FBI, someone like Igor Danchenko. You may remember him. He's one of the authors of the Steele dossier that detailed all these supposed salacious embarrassments that Trump committed on a trip to Moscow that Putin was using as blackmail against him. It was a blatant lie. He lied to the FBI. He admitted he lied to the FBI. The FBI admitted he lied to him, and yet a D.C. jury acquitted him. And the media didn't bat an eye to it. Or you just think of what happened with Laken Riley's killer, how he was reportedly let off the hook of the death penalty because of the negative signals it might send to the illegal immigrant community, right? I mean, it's insane stuff. But then you contrast that to the way the law has been weaponized against Trump, or the way Trump was treated by that Manhattan jury that convicted him of dozens and dozens of felonies. And to this day, we still don't quite actually know what his crime was. So all this together with the deliberate abdication of law enforcement responsibilities at the southern border and the big city Soros-backed DAs who replaced jail time for convicted criminals with what they call retributive justice, it's all just indicative of a cultural Marxist policy that is commonly known as anarcho-tyranny. We talk about it a lot on our channel. We've all experienced it, I'm sure, in some way, shape, or form. A police officer charges you a $100 fine because your parking meter went 10 seconds over, all the while ignoring the homeless guy 5 feet away from you shooting heroin, taking a crap on the sidewalk. That's anarcho-tyranny. It's a strange combination of legal exemptions for some, but legal weaponization for others. And the key here is that the purveyors of wokeness see criminals as the victims and the law-abiding as the victimizers. They see the criminals as the victims and the law-abiding as the victimizers. That's absolutely key to get. In an anarcho-tyrannical system, law-abiding citizens are actually recast as the criminals. And that's because we purportedly perpetuate a political, economic, and legal system infested with racist and bigoted and sexist and so-called policies. And so criminality, when it's practiced by this new class of sanctified victims, criminality is actually a cry for help. Crime is a cry. And it's a cry declaring that my illicit actions are indicative of a systematically racist and oppressive system that you, the law-abiding citizen, create and perpetuate. That, in a nutshell, is anarcho-tyranny. And it's not, let's be blunt, it's not merely insane, it's satanic. It's the inversion of truth. It's the inversion of reality. It is literally satanic in that it's a perverse inversion of a humane and just society. So all this is to say that Trump could not possibly get inaugurated soon enough. And we'll certainly keep an eye on who his next attorney general pick is, as well as who the next senator from Florida is. I have a feeling the two are going to be connected. We all have an opportunity to finally stop big tech and government overreach. It's happening, gang. Patriots are reclaiming our privacy. And you have no better way of protecting yourself than with SLNT. That's short for silent. Silent's Faraday products block all incoming and outgoing signals so no one can get their hands on your information. From key FOBs to phones and laptops, simply place your device inside, close the sleeve, and that's it. You're off the grid and safeguarded from unauthorized access. Go silent today by clicking on that link below or going to slnt.com/Turley to save 15% plus free shipping on all qualifying orders. Stay ahead of what's coming and secure your privacy today. Again, that's slnt.com/Turley for 15% off and free shipping on all qualified orders. slnt.com/Turley. All right, gang, as you all know, the days and weeks leading up to the election were an emotional roller coaster. I know you told me. 1 minute you'd see a poll and go, yeah, we got this. Trump is crushing it. And then the next minute you see another poll and you're like, oh, crap, it's over. What are we going to do? And as you know, whenever I got in front of the camera during those weeks, I showed you my consistent steel resolve. I proved myself to be calm and cool, a voice of assurance that, yes, Donald Trump has got this. And then when I would bid you a farewell and I'd turn off the camera, I'd start to hyperventilate. And I'd go into a complete panic, and my shaking hands would rush to my X feed, and I would rush to the account of my next guest, because all throughout the turbulence and the insanity of that election, this is the man who consistently remained steady as a rock, armed with the best data analysis out there, and analyzed this electorate and this election, not just accurately, but brilliantly. Joe Scarborough might call it cogently. And he is here to take a much deserved victory lap, and we all have to give him the biggest cyber applause out there and show him how appreciative we are for what he did for us in the months leading up to the election. This is the man who kept me sane so I could keep you sane, the one and only Rich Baris of the People's Pundit. Rich, my friend. Yes, Lord Richard, King Richard.
Thanks for having me as always, brother. I appreciate it.
Dude, I mean, that was completely heartfelt. I think that's exactly the role you fulfilled for more people than you can ever imagine out there. I mean, you were a voice of reason. You're a voice of stability, of balance in a turbulent, mediated world, a simulated reality that's always benefiting one political side over and against the others, and then makes the other political side, our side, feel like we're crazy. And you brought sanity. You brought so much sanity in the midst of that. I have to ask you, do you ever at any point think, wait, maybe you're the one going nuts? you know, maybe these charlatans are right.
You know, I think that I always try to remember 2016 when those moments come, because they inevitably do come, especially when you have such a dishonest election mafia out there, which is why I do what I do, because I feel like George Gallup was right. Number one, this all doesn't work. We're just way too big. It isn't the early republic anymore. We're way too big, and we need to have accurate public opinion measured, or we need public opinion accurately measured, and that information needs to get passed on to our legislators when they're deciding what to do. And it also obviously needs to make for a smart a campaign, but then also too, Americans kind of need to know what to expect. And their dishonesty was really couched this time in this, like, oh, let me hedge my bet. It's a 50-50 election, but let me just give a slight edge to Kamala. Steve, never. Kamala Harris never led in our polling. Never. When she had a modest bounce, it was a response bias. Right. Everybody knew, and they didn't say anything. It was like, of course, some people did jump on it after we did first. But the fact of the matter is, for the better part of 2 years, this thing has been Donald Trump's election to lose. He was going to put together a historically diverse coalition. And, I'm proud of the work we did this year, even dating back to the primary and before any votes were even cast in the primary, folks. The Trump or bust vote that I came on the show and talked to you about was real. All right. His improvement with non-white voters was not a mirage. Okay. None of this was ever really a question for me, but yes, they do make you, because it's a barrage, it's a barrage, and they do maybe give you pause here and there. But I try to think back to 16 when they first did it to me, and I was naive, and I'm not now.
And you're not now. You meant, there are response bias polls, and then there's Ann Selzer.
And then there's Ann. Good old Ann.
Good old Ann. I mean, what the heck? There's response bias polls, and there's Maris. There's response bias polls, and there's morning compost, as you guys love to call them. I mean, what is this? Is this a racket? Are those guys literally part of a racket here? Like a pro-Democrat racket?
Marist is a racket. Okay. It's a racket. There's now ample evidence for Marist, if they were objective, to go and look at the work that they have done over not just the last 2 presidential cycles, but this has been going on for a while with Marist, especially in the Rust Belt and Sun Belts. They have been wrong. They, again, can have the dubious distinction of getting every single battleground state incorrect. Every single one. Even the ones where they had Trump up, like Trump did not win Arizona by a point. Okay? All right? It's just so ridiculous. Kamala Harris, it was not even possible for her to be ahead in those Great Lakes states. But let's pretend she was. She was ahead by the same margin in every single state. I mean, it just tells you, like, these are not statistical. These are not statistically likely outcomes. Okay. And there's hurting when a pollster wants to look like others. And unfortunately, we saw some of that where we had cowards, and I'm going to call them out. At Mitchell Research, for instance, he had the right result. Yes, we knew that it was going to shrink from the 3-point lead that we had Trump in October. It was going to shrink when the rest of her base came home. But Mitchell had the right outcome. He got scared. He got scared when Marist and others put their polls out, and he redid his final poll and had Harris up. And it was just disgusting to watch at. People do this stuff when they know better. When it comes to Ann Selzer, I will tell you this. I found out the Thursday before the poll was released that Ann had Harris up in Iowa. I found out through the same people that we told you she was holding a Biden plus Trump plus 19 over Biden. I came in, we talked about that, and I remember when that happened. I also, the same people who told me that she spiked the poll before the Democratic primary in 2020 because the Biden campaign did not want her putting the poll out with Biden in fourth place. Pete Buttigieg, they came up with this manufactured excuse about Pete Buttigieg not being on the questionnaire for one interviewer, and they used him as a foil, which he was happy to be because he actually thought he was going to beat Bernie Sanders in Iowa, and he didn't want the Selzer poll showing him in second place. So he was happy to play that game, but that was a fabricated story. And I got my hands on the actual poll and put it on Twitter. And so did Mike Cernovich, by the way. And we were both told that that was a fabricated story by different sources, So fast forward to 2020, and Barnes and I are on What Are the Odds live. Fox News, we're polling live, and we're showing people Ohio and Iowa. Fox News drops a Biden +3 in Ohio while we're tracking live and showing Trump +8. And also Trump +8 in Iowa, and Ann Selzer drops a tie. She's been narrative polling for a long time. Iowa was never a tie. All right. And then fast forward all these years later, and we found this out. I will just tell you this. From what I understand, the reason and it got worse as time went on is I am told January 6th broke her brain. She did your very typical credentialed professional class woman freak out after January 6th, and she lost her objectivity. There were people who were trying to express to the Des Moines Register that Ann is not capable of being objective anymore, and they were damn near fired on the spot. So they were so like, you can't call in a question the chastity of the great Ann Selzer. Like she's still wearing a freaking belt or something, Steve. I mean, give me a break.
Blasphemy, right? The Alan Lichtman blasphemy.
It's blasphemy, right? It's just outrageous. And then she was calling people all over town. She called, and I'll blow people up right now. She called a lawyer friend of hers. She called 2 Harris surrogates. And when someone was listening, overheard what she was saying, she said something to the effect of, "I'm about to drop a bomb in this son of a bitch's lap," talking about Donald Trump and cackling with it to her Democratic friends who are attached to the Harris campaign.
Right.
Outrageous behavior.
Outrageous
behavior. And then she goes on Mark Halpern to try to explain herself. And everyone who's a pollster, everyone who knows what they're talking about, you had him on recently. Mark Mitchell and I listened to that interview, and we looked at each other like, oh my God, this woman is truly a liar. She's full of it. The excuse that she caught some abortion vote from college-educated women, load of crap. Abortion wasn't even her number one issue. They pulled a Starbucks line in Des Moines or something because threats to democracy was the number one issue in the Des Moines poll. And by the way, Trump won the threats to democracy vote.
Right, exactly. The irony of irony.
By the way, we had him doing barely, but we had him doing.
Right,
so we even caught that. And we told people about that at the time. Anytime you see a poll with threats to democracy is the number one issue, and Harris with an advantage, be suspect. Because it means at the very best, there's a response bias that favors liberals. But the truth is, it's probably
the narrative
worse,
polling.
Or worse. Yes.
Yeah.
And that's what Ann did. She went on Mark, and she made an excuse that did not even comport with what her data was showing. And just lastly, and I'll shut up, I went back to the last couple of weeks of our national collection, and I took all of our Iowa responses, which came to almost 400 responses just from Iowa, right, as a subset. And I was looking at it, and I'm like, this is actually fairly representative. It was like 53% female. It was like demographically, by race and education, everything looked pretty good. So I said, well, let me just isolate these responses. Let me see just a mild weighting variable. Let me see what it comes to. And it came to almost identical to the margin Trump won Iowa by.
Wow.
So it wasn't some mistake. This was Ann being Ann.
This is Ann being Ann. And just to think of all, I mean, I did a whole video of the way Rachel Maddow ran away with that poll over that weekend, which I think was the point. We had.
That's the
do you
point.
We had that horrible jobs report on that Friday, if I recall, Thursday.
17,000 jobs. Oh my God.
That's 7,000 more than I remember. I thought it was like 10,000.
Oh, you might be right. You actually may be right.
Wow, I'm sure you're the data guy. I'm going with you. But I mean, they were expecting 100,000 and it was just a disaster. It's the last report you want. Absolute nightmare report just days before an election. And they just absolutely knocked it off the front page because look at this.
Poll.
Yeah, the most accurate pollster on the planet, blah, blah, blah. I know.
She's not.
And she's not. That's the irony.
We outperformed her in the primary, in the caucus this year. We outperformed her in 2020. I mean, she hasn't been the most accurate pollster in Iowa for a very long time. And by the way, speaking of long time ago, maybe I'm just too old, but I remember when she had John Kerry winning that state by like 8 points, and he didn't. He lost.
Right.
Bush carried Iowa. Give me a break. Give me a.
I think we can call her the Alan Lichtman of polling at this point. It's just I think she does a great job of marketing herself, but that's all it is.
That's right.
It's simulated reality. It's not real. But yeah. Let's get to the election itself, because you said something I think it really got my attention in terms of your analysis and some of the big takeaways here. I forget if this was Wednesday or Friday after the election for you. You said something akin to this, that this election was in many ways even bigger than 1988, even bigger than when George Herbert Walker Bush won 40 states. What was it? 400 electoral college votes. Can you explain that? Because I think you were dead on. But how? In many ways, how are we looking at our own version of more of like a 1984 than we are in 1988?
Yeah, and I would say, to keep this in mind too, I actually think that it was bigger than Obama's, and the reason why is
that's right.
Obama's wasn't real. It was a fake coalition. Everyone knew John McCain was going to lose. A bunch of white people with white guilt who typically vote Republican but are credentialed decided, I want to vote for the first black president. So they did. They abandoned John McCain, and it fell apart within a few months because it never was real. They weren't voting on his policies. They were voting on the moment. All right. In an incredibly pro-democratic environment with two unpopular
+8, wasn't it? Democrat +8.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And I would say this too with 88, in the case of 88, that was a coalition on loan from Reagan. Reagan was, this is, people don't, I mean, we're getting, back there now. So, I mean, I'm 43, but you're getting even to when I was a kid, but I, still remember it. You get older and doing what I do, obviously it's on the block. You got to know what happened here. Michael Dukakis was going to win that election, and they did run at the last minute. And by how much, guys? He was in double digits in Gallup over the summer. He was like Democrat. Yeah. It was Dukakis +16 at one point. It was huge. It started to dip, not when they ran the ads, the Willie Horton ads. If you go back and look, it started to dip when Ronald Reagan was the keynote speaker at the convention before Herbert Walker Bush, and he went up there and he told America, just one time, guys, give him a chance. And the polls dramatically changed when Ronald Reagan gave what was probably one of the most powerful endorsements anyone has ever given anybody. Rudy Giuliani, by the way, endorsing Mayor Bloomberg is another one of these examples. When somebody's down like double digits and the country or the voters think so highly of someone that when they go to the microphone and they say, this is my guy, for me, give him a shot. And then the polls can't even measure how fast opinion changes. And because there was enough time before the election, we actually could measure it. In Gallup, you can see it very clearly. And then this is important as well. He went up there and he said, read my lips, no new taxes.
That was huge.
That was on. So he had Ronnie's coalition on loan because Ronnie said, do it. And by the time election came around, he had broken so many promises, not even an endorsement from Reagan, who they trotted out there again, even though he was in very bad health, mentally and physically. He was in very bad health. It just wasn't going to have the same impact because at this point, the voters said, we did give him a chance. And you blew it. Right. And
you started to see the Buchanan Perot populist breaking off. Yeah.
which is a warning, Dr. Steve. It's a
Mm.
warning for today. If you think that the Ross Perot coalition crippled the Republican Party for like a decade, if they don't deliver on Donald Trump's agenda, they will make the Perot fracture look like a paper cut.
Oh,
And
I'll
I'm
join it.
telling
Yeah,
you,
I'd join it. Absolutely.
I'll tell you what, you would. I know countless other people who would. And then there are the low and no prop voters, which is what makes this election so special for Trump. Increased participation for the first time in my lifetime was going to favor the Republican candidate. And these people don't vote, think that their votes, doesn't matter. The system is rigged. He got these people to vote, as in addition to like a group we worked with. Of course, you had Musk doing stuff. Like there was a get out the vote targeting these people that Republicans have never seen before. Charlie Kirk, they obviously did a very good job in Arizona for Donald Trump. Look at the numbers. But a lot of this was just organic, which you can see in states like New Jersey and New York, where there wasn't any campaigning. And that's what makes this, honestly, to me, I came on your show, I would periodically come on and you and I would talk about this. You got it a lot in a way that other people didn't. We would talk about the urban rural coalition to bridging this divide, and others haven't, even in landslide elections, have not been able to do that. Right. And Donald Trump did this. And why is it so big? Not only is it more diverse than even before I forget, not the electorate changes. That's something people have to keep in mind. This isn't 88 anymore. It's much easier to win an election if you're a Republican in 1988 than it is to win it in 2024 or 2016 or 2020. Right. So it's like, it's popular votes, less than 2 points. Well, okay. The electorate is much more diverse than it was when George Bush won it by 3. Are you kidding me? Bush would have lost the popular vote if the electorate was the same as today. He would have lost it. But, and to come back, because people have to remember that when they're comparing these elections, you're not comparing apples to apples. You're comparing apples to oranges. And it's a little bit intellectually lazy if you don't acknowledge that fact. And that is a fact.
If just in parentheses, because right along the tracking with you, right before this interview, just about an hour ago, I interviewed a fellow, Latino fellow from Miami-Dade. He's in Miami City, Miami-Dade. And man, he just said everyone he knew
supported Trump.
Everyone he knew support. He knew Trump was going to crush Miami-Dade and hence crush Florida. You saw that early on. I remember actually hanging out with Barnes out in Vegas, smoking cigars. And I can't even remember. It was like a year ago. And I think it was a year ago, several months ago. And I remember looking at him and said, "Did you see Baris on? Did you hear about Baris's poll on Miami-Dade?" And he's just like, "Oh yeah, it's totally going Trump." I'm like, "Isn't this the same place that voted 30 points for Hillary?" This is a realignment on steroids, and you saw that very early on.
And he outperformed our poll in Florida. He did. We had him up by 11 statewide. But if you look at the Miami-Dade Gold Coast region in our poll, that includes Miami, of course, Miami-Dade, and it includes Palm Beach, right? And the rest of the Gold Coast counties. And Broward, obviously, is the most liberal of those. And that's why it was tied. Like the overall region was tied. It was because of Broward being for Harris, but Miami-Dade was for Trump. And actually, it's not tied. I understated his support in Miami-Dade. It was Trump by 6. He almost doubled that. And that's why our poll understated him by a few points. So we had Trump plus 11. He won it by 13, which is just think about what I'm saying. It sounds like out loud that we're saying. It
was a swing state 4 years ago. I mean, it's just, it was
a blowout. A complete blowout. He took back Duval County, by the way, which is more affluent and credentials.
Bellwether for Georgia. Yeah.
Bellwether for Georgia, which almost identical, by the way. They voted again, pretty close, almost. But the swing was a little bit less pronounced in Georgia, which is something Republicans have to keep an eye on. And this is important. Actually, it tells you that when the white vote swings, it will swing a little bit more R or D either way. When the non-white vote swings, it's going to be less pronounced for now. but in the future that could change. And it's another cautionary tale for Republicans because it tells you that Georgia's not going to be alone. You better all learn to be like Donald Trump real soon and learn to win 19% of the black vote, learn to win 34% of the black male vote in Texas, which is just insane, but he did. Insane. Learn how to do that, or you're going to lose the southern states. Look at Mississippi, how Todd ran against Trump in Mississippi. Yeah, he won the election. He won it by 5 points, brother. That's not a lot. Where did Trump?
That's almost getting to be swing state status.
It's a little close. And meanwhile, Trump romps it. And you're tempted to say, well, any Republican would, but they wouldn't. If you look at where the outperformance from Trump is in the black belt counties. That's where the biggest outperformance compared to Republicans down ticket and other Republicans in other elections. They're in the black belt counties. And by the way, look at Western Mississippi, heavily African-American, heavily Democratic, the bluest part of the state. Compare Trump to the governor. Compare Trump to himself 4 years ago. Those are black voters voting for a Republican president. Wow. I mean,
incredible.
You remember the autopsy of 2012?
Oh gosh!
Now you got it. They got it.
Yep.
They got what they wanted.
But not the way they wanted. They were going to go the way of identity politics.
Yes.
And this is class politics. Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah. What do you make of the nation swinging 4 to 6 points to the right? Even more so. I mean, obviously in some of these like Texas and Florida, but the swing states kind of resisting that swing.
Well, I think one off the bat, and I know the audience is going to be like, come on, don't ignore the fraud. Look, give me a second. I'm getting there. Okay. The Democratic machine is in some areas and it's not in others. I'm getting there. But it also is, and people need to keep this in mind, it's the impact or the result of an absolutely obscene amount of money that it gets put in a campaigning. I mean, the one-word answer to the disparity is campaigning. We unfortunately live in a very weird political environment where 7 states get the focus and get the lion's share of the money spent on these elections. And while it's supposed to be a national election, it's not. They campaign in like 7 swing states. If you were to do it organically, let's say they weren't allowed to advertise. I mean, Kamala's money advantage was disgusting, guys.
3-1, yeah,
disgusting. Yeah, 3-1. And the average Republican in a competitive district was three times the underdog to Democrats in the House. I mean, the money is gross on the Democratic side. It's gross on both sides, but I mean, the Democratic side is enough to make sure that like a small third world country doesn't have a single homeless person. Like, it's disgusting. And this is what I mean. I think it's so gross. I hate it. I have always hated it. Right. And these rent seekers, they can't put their hand in their pocket to help their fellow man. They're such shisty scumbags. We need a SNAP program because they can't do it on our own like we should as citizens, by the way. We should be taking care of each other by ourselves. We shouldn't need a government to dock our pay so they can then take 75 cents out of every dollar and then give us a quarter to help feed the poor. Like it's one of the most derelict things we have going on. But they can't do that, but they sure can dip into their pocket to make sure they bought an election or they bought a senator or a congressman or a president. And so a big part of that is that. I mean, if you look at the organic movement in other states that are not thought of competitive, go compare Cook County, Illinois from 2020 to 2024, folks. He's at 36% of the vote in Cook County. That's gross. He got 22 or 24%. Which was already a strong performance, Steve.
Dude, your old backyard, New York City,
Look at the 5 boroughs. Look at the 5 boroughs.
It's insane. It's insane what's going on. It's just
in the most non-white areas.
Exactly.
The hardest.
Yeah, I'm curious. So do you think I thought you made an observation about, and as you guys can see, that's why you have to subscribe to Rich's stuff. Click on the link below because I watch Rich all the time. I love his stuff. But I think you made a quip about New Jersey. Well, certainly Scott Pressler, I think maybe got word of it. That this new realignment, this non-white, white, populist, working class realignment now puts states in play that would have been unthinkable during the Paul Ryan, Mitch McConnell, Mittens Romney's years. We're talking Jersey. We're talking Minnesota. We're talking possibly New Mexico. New Hampshire and Maine always seem just always miss it. I don't know what it is. They're too Libby up there.
I'm an old
Connecticut, but I think you even mentioned Connecticut. I'm an old Connecticut boy.
That's right. I mean, they're not campaigning, and it's really annoying me. Like, they're believing the polls, the public polls, and I'm sure Tony did a decent job for Trump, although I don't think you need tens of millions of dollars to write a one-page polling memo with top lines. Like, again, this is the thing I'm talking about, like how disgusting it is, the money that's spent on campaigning. And I know what he passes to the president. So it's like, that's it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's what he's paying.
You remember when Trump made the comment about the polls? He's like, I don't know. I pay these guys a lot of money.
No wonder. No wonder, Steve. I mean, he's getting 1-2-page memos. Like, he's not getting exactly interactive crosstabs from like my locals community is. Like, my locals community is paying $7 a month and getting more in-depth data than Tony Fabrizio is giving Donald Trump. It's ridiculous. Right. But they believe this crap and they don't go and campaign. Look, he went once to New Hampshire, and J.D. Vance went once. The polls were ridiculous, did not show it competitive at all, and yet that was within 3 points again. So if he pushed for New Hampshire, he may have gotten it. Definitely Maine. I've even outlined a location strategy in the state of Maine to take the state of Maine, and they didn't do it. And it's a no-brainer. Wouldn't even cost that much money. By the way, the worst poll of the cycle was Anne can keep this at least as a consolation prize. She was the second worst poll of the cycle. The worst poll of the cycle was the Dartmouth College poll, which had Kamala Harris winning New Hampshire by 28 points. Unbelievable miss. Unbelievable. Or 25 points, and it was a 29-point miss. Or almost 29, because it's like, close. But just absolutely just awful polling. And they believe this stuff, and they don't.
Kim Jong-un would say, no, this is not how you do it.
Yeah, no,
nobody believes it. You're giving up the whole game here.
Nobody believe. All right. And
nobody believes. Nobody is going to believe this.
Minnesota again. So what? Tim Walz is from Minnesota. Who gives a damn?
Yeah,
they should have went to Minnesota. That state is not primed and ready to go. And that was just a natural inch to Trump a little bit, a couple of points. It wasn't a lot, but that's because he didn't go for it, and he should have, because there's it's a complicated electorate there. There's strange. I wouldn't say strange. It's not the right word. It's, but it's a different non-white vote there. Unique. Yeah, unique. Thank you. Thank you. Bailing me out there. That's strange.
Too generous.
Yeah, unique is definitely the right word. And I really think that he had an opportunity that, again, he did not take. And that's really tragic, because I feel like the country would benefit from getting more attention than just 7 battleground states. I'm over this. I really am. Right. But yes, New Jersey, it looks like I texted Scott and I said, this thing's going. And, this is going. And it's kind of funny.
Incredible.
Like, I had a couple of people, and I didn't because Mark Robinson was running. And I thought, no, it would be kind of a joke anyway. I'm not ready to do it. But people were like, asking me to run for something. And I'm like, too many skeletons. But in New Jersey, nobody cares about those skeletons. And I would have to move back there, but I have always wanted.
Did you ever live in Jersey at any point?
Oh, years. Yeah. I was part of the Italian exodus out of the 5 boroughs into the burbs of Jersey.
And okay. So northern Jersey.
Part of my heart, man. So watching Morris County go was not surprising, but I was like, I'm rooting for it. And then Monmouth, I'm like looking at these stooges in the election mafia like Dave Wasserman, and he's like, you know what, if we're gonna see that swing, he didn't even say if, he said we're gonna know right away how much white suburban women are swinging to Harris by Monmouth County, New Jersey. And I'm thinking to myself, this guy is freaking clueless. Monmouth County, Howell, Freehold, like 0 chance this place is not going hardcore this time for Donald Trump, because he carried it last time, but it was only like 50 to 47. He smacked her like a donkey in Monmouth. And Dave is like silent all night. You know, like, where are you, Dave? You don't want to comment anymore? You don't want to comment anymore? I'm telling you, and Bergen can be next. It's just that New Jersey is machine politics.
Yeah, it's machine politics. 1 million more registered Democrats that just they're able to get the votes. But yeah, if we can unleash the beast of Scott Pressler out there and do the same kind of miracle we did in Pennsylvania, do you think there's a way of being able to solidify sort of the MAGA dominance in the key 7 swings so we can move the swing states over more to Maine and New Hampshire and maybe even Virginia? I mean, if you're saying in Jersey, I mean, so guys, if you don't know, Rich grew up in New York. I grew up in Connecticut. My grandparents grew up in Morristown, New Jersey. So we're from the same area. I mean, dude, you could flip those red. I've lived in blue places my whole freaking life. I'm so tired of it. I mean, do you think that's possible? I do.
Absolutely, I do. And I think after this election, the order was probably New Jersey, Maine, would be priorities. And Connecticut's not that far behind, guys. It really is.
Wasn't it? Was it 9? I forget.
I'll give you the exact last for Connecticut, because I mean, it was close. Close for Connecticut. It wasn't quite. It was double digits, but for Connecticut, this is definitely
low double.
56 to 42. So yeah, okay. I mean,
right, not too bad,
but not the 22-point blowouts anymore.
No.
And you got to start somewhere. You got to start somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Like New Jersey was one of only 2 states, folks, that moved more to Barack Obama from 08 to 12, and now it's single digits. And I'm telling you, he could have carried that state if he gave it more attention. Because I'm looking at where he was ultimately deficient. He didn't make as much of an inroad in like Somerset and Middlesex. Middlesex would certainly be the next big target, along with Bergen County. Hudson is going to be a tough nut to crack for a while. Of course, Trenton is there. Newark, is there right there. Essex is what did you get? Like 20-something% of the vote. Those 2, Hudson and Essex, are going to be blue, and they're going to be blue for a while. But Morris flipped. Monmouth continued to move. Ocean was 67 to 31. That's where Lakewood is. There's a huge population of Hasidic Jews. And by the way, there's a left-wing rabbi that's still left-wing. And on Saturday night, he put out, I forgot what the name of it's called, but it's basically when the rabbi tells you who we're voting for, right? And he's progressive, left-wing, and he endorsed Donald Trump. Wow. And I saw those lines in Lakewood, because Laura and I know Lakewood very well. I'm like, Laura, look at these lines. Trump also carried Passaic, and Bergen was just right there, 50.7 to 47.3. This is that part of Jersey too, and parts of New York are excellent examples of the Trump or bust voter that you and I had talked about so many times.
Yes.
I didn't even know that I coined a phrase, and it ended up a thing. And we go to her cousin's wedding in August, and we're in northern New Jersey, but it's the wedding itself is in New York. So it's, folks, that's how it is. 1 minute you're in Jersey for a reception, the next minute you're in New York for the wedding, then you're back to Jersey for the after party, right? That's the way it goes. And I'm watching these signs, Dr. Turley, and it's big red and white signs. I'm a Trump or bust voter.
Wow.
And next to those signs are signs for the Democratic congressman.
Yeah, that's it. It's populism. That's populism.
Populism. Yep. And the Republican Party has got to get it through their stupid little thickheads because they're out of time. By the way, every show I'm going on, I'm taking the opportunity to mock Mike Garcia, who called me a dumbass, publicly twice, once on X and once on a show.
Are they still counting?
Dumbass now, Mike. Look,
are they still counting, or is he gone? Is he lost?
No, he's done. They are still counting, but he's done. Yeah. He's finished.
He's done. Yeah.
They flew me out there to what? Listen to me, tell them what they were going to end up in 4 years ahead of schedule. Didn't take my advice. Then 22 comes along. I'm like, you're taking this all wrong. This is exactly what I told you should expect in the midterms. You're ending up here now. Do not think this is some affirmation of you. It is not. And when Trump comes back, and he's on the ballot, you're going to lose these Orange County seats, and you're going to run behind him in the Central Valley while he slaps. Look at John Duarte. If he crawls by the skin of his teeth this time, he's done. He's done.
That you know what? That's who I'm thinking about. I'm thinking of Duarte.
Duarte's got
because that's still undecided, isn't it?
He's got a chance. His lead went up to like less than 300 votes. And, you separated by 200, but now it's like a little less than 300. But there's Merced. Trump is running obscenely ahead of him in Merced. And Stanislaus is his own backyard. Donald Trump carrying Stanislaus. It shifted 16 points to Donald Trump, and John's losing it to Adam Gray.
But I don't think they want what you're saying to be true. I think they just seem to occupy such a different cultural space than the working class, right? I mean,
totally agree with you.
They're elitists, they're snobs. They want to hang out with the cosmopolitan, metropolitan crowd, sipping Johnny Walker Black, and they don't know how to relate to the future of the Republican Party.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I was just having a conversation with Darvio Morrow. He writes columns for Newsweek, right? And it's funny, he's been fighting with like those people even before the primary. Chris Wilson's one of his favorite punching bags from WPA Intel, the Rhino polling company that polled for Ron DeSantis and attacked me every day. Right? You right? Remember that? He's an idiot. He's an idiot.
They occupy that different cultural space. It's ridiculous.
And I'm telling you, you're right. And that's what I was trying to explain to Darvio too. I don't think they really want this. They pay lip service to it, but they're uncomfortable. Fundamentally, they are uncomfortable because status is like a currency in DC. They have, the truth is, congressmen like John Duarte, for instance, claims I have a Hispanic sounding last name, so Hispanics are going to love me. They don't. All right.
There's the identity politics.
Yes. And he has more in common with Adam Gray, a Democrat. He has more in common with Adam Schiff, a Democrat, because of the class that they both occupy and that they want to occupy. They don't want to give this up. So they would rather hang out, like he'd rather hang out with an Adam Schiff than hang out with like a Darvio Morrow or hang out with, the people you could see Trump mixing it up with at a UFC or something. They can't do this. They need to ask themselves how much longer they want to be humiliated. A 74-year-old billionaire white man from Queens, New York, just performed the best any Republican has ever performed with non-white voters if combined. And with Hispanics, it's ever in the history of exit polling. We don't have another candidate to gauge against. It's incredible.
It is unbelievable. I always thought that Trump cut his teeth on WWE. I think that's what he really, proved his populist bona fides, getting in that ring, roughing it up with these guys, and now our education secretary as well, which is great how it comes full circle.
Linda
McMahon,
Connecticut, by the way, she ran.
That's right. Yeah. They're in aren't they in Stanford? I forget where the building is.
Stanford.
We wanted to go and visit, but it's probably you can't. I mean, it's appointment only and all that.
Of course, yeah.
But
she's something.
What's that? Yeah.
Something.
Oh, absolutely. I remember she ran for. Yeah. Was it governor or senator? I can't remember.
And she came very close.
Yeah.
Not an easy guy to unseat. She came pretty close.
She did. She came very, very close, with no question. What are some of the trends, Rich, that you plan on keeping an eye on in the months ahead? We've been talking about the political realignment. What are some of the things that are intriguing you as a pollster?
Right. So, one, young voters is a big deal. I don't know how else to explain this to people beyond how I've been explaining it. And it's cool to be a Trump voter if you're 18 to 29 years old. It's cool to, man, I voted for Trump. And it's cool. Like if you guys play, and I don't want to mention any games, although there is one game that I play with my son. It's like a strategy war game. And somebody you would go on Voice or something like that. Somebody heard me. They were like, oh my God, I'm watching Sebastian Gorka, the Sunday show, and that's you. Because they do know, I'm in that. I'm like, oh, I've been totally outed. Because I don't want to be outed. I don't want politics involved in games, but they don't either normally. But something was very different. My son showing me meme after meme after meme. It was cool to be a Trump supporter.
Yeah.
Republican, not so much. Not so much. Democrats lost control over a certain group of younger voters. And you can see it in the exit poll. You can see it in our polling before the election. Somehow the wokeness missed them. You know what I mean? Or didn't miss them. Maybe they saw it and they don't like it. I don't know yet.
That's
I don't
the sense
know
I get from my nephew who goes to a public school in Connecticut, and he's just like, we have to take this stupid social justice class, and everybody just laughs at it.
My kids are getting growled at by furries, like, and scratched. It's insane, and people mock them, and they think it's like, of course, because you're mentally ill. You know, like there's not. This isn't a civil rights issue. You're crazy, and there's something with these younger people where those social issues certainly stuck with them. Also, I think maybe because a lot of them are in that 18 to 24, maybe some of them are old enough to remember when their parents were doing better under Donald Trump. And then they were promised the world and the adults were going to be in charge. They get Joe Biden and their parents can't pay for milk. You know what I mean? That could be, both things could be true at once. And I'm not sure we haven't, well, not, I know we haven't had enough time to study it yet. But that's one of the things, of course, that I'm going to keep an eye on, whether or not this is a uniquely Trump thing, because you can look around the map and you can see it, Doc. You'll see it. They did not do as good with young voters. Bernie Moreno did okay, you know, and that was one of those states where I was like, there's some states where Trump wins every age group. Rick Scott, he did okay with them. But this is not a Republican thing. This is a Trump thing. And if you're closely associated with Trump, if you're like one of Trump's boys, they'll vote for you too. But if they don't think you are, or they don't know you, just because you have an R next to your name does not mean that they are going to. Yeah. And then secondly, in the immediate future, I'm going to keep an eye on Trump's approval rating. His favorability rating is the highest it's ever been in our polling right now. And that means like the sky is the limit for his approval rating. If he goes in there and starts delivering, this guy could hit 60%. Mark my words. Now, they'll probably try to make it negative, but the hatred for Trump is just not what it used to be anymore, right? It's like relegated to a small fringe, radicalized, not even the word, fanatical sector, rabidly fanatic, right? Sector of the professional class, and that's it. That's it. That's all. So we'll see. Yeah.
Absolutely stunning. Rich, where can people find you? I know we'll have some links down below, but I love your locals. I'm assuming that's your locals page. Yeah, that's
definitely. Yeah, I mean, we're on X, Truth, Getter, everywhere. People_pundit on X. It's just People's Pundit everywhere else. But on locals is definitely the best place to follow us. It's peoplespundit.locals.com. peoplespundit.locals.com. And I was just saying this too before, but they'll get it first. We're gonna have this map up. It's gonna be pretty cool. Like, how did we do with the public polling project? How did we do? What do we think we can improve on? And the map's gonna be a little bit more detailed this year, because every year we're getting better at showing interactives. We don't have the Nate Cohen high tech IT department, but we're definitely trying to up our game. So it's gonna be pretty cool. Looking forward to it. I think people will like it.
Oh, I know I will. I'll be looking forward to that as well. I've been interviewing a number of your fellow pollsters and election modelers, all of whom are taking a much deserved victory lap. You guys really are the gold standards. You really are, and I think you've proven that time and time again. But I do have to tell you, Prince Richard, I gotta tell you, you're the best. You really
Thanks,
are.
Brother. Thanks.
I mean, I watched your live stream on election night. I had you on while I was sifting through all the X accounts and all the modelers I was following, and you really did for me. I want this audience to know you provided for me the single best analysis overall of 2024, bar none. And I could not recommend a pollster or a data analyst more than yourself. So from everyone here at this channel, because I think my channel is getting really sick of hearing your name. I name dropped you every single day.
That's awesome, though.
Leading up to the election. Well, I'm a scholar by nature, so I got a footnote, right? So,
yeah, right.
So I would say, well, Rich Baris said this and Rich Baris said that. I think people were even writing back to what did Rich Baris say today, Turley, but I got to tell you, man, it's so deserved. You work so hard and you mean so much to so many. So Rich, from the bottom of our hearts, thank you, sir. You did an amazing service and you continue to do so. And your work should be supported to the nth degree. So God bless you, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That means a lot. Thanks for having me on, as always. Best to you and yours, brother. See you soon.
Absolutely, Rich. God bless. Thank you. Gang, we all know that our country witnessed a moment we'll never forget. We saw a man get shot, stand up, fist in the air, and in defiance scream, "Fight!" Well, sadly, too many of us have lost our fight, and that's exactly how the globalists want it. They want us weak, out of shape, full of estrogen and microplastics. This is why we're so excited to partner with Choq. Choq offers a whole lineup of products formulated to increase your energy, your focus, detoxify your body, and based on clinical studies, boost your testosterone. In fact, the ingredients in the Choq Male Vitality Stack have been clinically studied to boost free testosterone by 87% in just 21 days. Unlike with gimmicky vegetable pills or powder, you're going to feel the difference, and they have the clinical studies to back it up. And right now, you can get 25% off your Choq subscription for life. You heard that right. For life. Just go to choq.com, that's spelled CHOQ.com, and use the promo code Turley. That's 25% off any subscription for life, and you can cancel anytime. Choq is made in America, and their all-American customer service team is standing by to assist you. It's time to make men's vitality great again. Get Choq today. That's choq.com, CHOQ.com. Promo code Turley. You can text or call them at 50-CHOQ-3000. That's 50-CHOQ-3000.